I never liked these mixers. The suits were pressed too tight, the laughter too sharp, and the wine tasted like money I couldn't afford. I always felt out of place in these tall glass rooms, like a kid sneaking into a party meant for grown-ups. Still, I showed up because that's what you're supposed to do when you're trying to make it in business. Smile, shake hands, pretend you belong. That night, I lingered by the bar, nursing the cheapest whiskey they had, when I heard her voice. Clara Mitchell. My Clara. She was across the room, standing with Ryan Cole, the golden boy of our firm. His hair slicked back, his smile polished to perfection. The kind of guy who looked born in a three-piece suit. Clara leaned toward him, champagne flute dangling from her fingers, and she laughed. That laugh. Familiar and sharp, yet this time it felt like glass cutting against me. I shouldn't have listened. I should have walked away, but her words pinned me in place. Daniel? He's sweet, she said, dragging the word like it was a weakness. But too simple. Too small time to survive in this world. The room spun. For a second, I thought I'd misheard. But Ryan's smirk confirmed it. He leaned closer, his voice low but still audible over the hum of the crowd. Yeah, he's not exactly CEO material, is he? Clara's laugh spilled out again, louder this time. A sound I used to chase like sunlight. Now it's scorched. I gripped my glass so hard my knuckles turned white. The woman who once stayed up with me under the stars, talking about the future, the one who cried on my shoulder when her mom left, who swore we'd always be in each other's corner, she was mocking me. Not just me. My entire life. My simplicity. I wanted to storm over, to demand why. To ask her if all those years of friendship were just a game to her. But my throat locked up. My chest felt heavy, like someone had pressed a fist into it and refused to let go. Instead, I set my glass down, barely noticing the splash of whiskey on my sleeve. My hands trembled, but I shoved them into my pockets and walked out of the ballroom. The laughter followed me, echoing in my head long after the elevator doors closed. That was the night something inside me snapped. The night I realized Clara Mitchell, the girl who once said my quiet dreams made me different, was gone. And all I had left was her laughter, burning like a scar I'd never forget. Sleep didn't come easy after that night. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, replaying her laugh on a loop. It wasn't just the sound, it was what it carried. Dismissal. Condescension. A sharp edge I'd never heard from Clara before. But my mind, traitorous as ever, didn't stay in that ballroom. It wandered backward, digging through years of memories I hadn't touched in a long time. I saw us as kids, walking home from school on cracked sidewalks, our shadows stretching long under the setting sun. Clara always carried too many books. So I carried some for her, even though my backpack already sagged with my own. She'd tease me, call me her pack mule, but she'd smile when she said it. That smile felt like a secret reward. Later, in high school, we'd camp out in the library, sitting side by side at those ancient wooden tables. She studied economics, I fiddled with notebooks full of ideas I wasn't brave enough to share. She'd lean over, peek at my scribbles, and say, "One day you'll build something real, Daniel. Something that matters." She believed in me then. At least, I thought she did. We dreamed together too. About escaping our small town, about city lights and big futures. I told her once, under the stars by the river, that I didn't care about being rich, I just wanted to create something that lasted. Something my father would have been proud of. My father. God, I could almost hear his voice in those moments. He used to say, "Daniel, don't chase the quick wins. Build something with roots. Flash fades, but roots hold." He died before he could see what kind of man I'd become. Maybe that's why I held on to his words so tightly. They were all I had left of him. And Clara had nodded that night, her head on my shoulder, whispering, I like that about you. You're different. Not like the others. But now. Now she laughed at the very thing she once admired. My simplicity. My refusal to fake ruthlessness. The betrayal echoed louder than her laughter. Louder than Ryan's smirk. Louder than the clinking glasses and murmurs of that ballroom. I stared at the ceiling, wondering if it had all been a lie. Was every smile, every late-night talk, every promise of forever friends, just smoke? Did she ever mean it? Or was I just convenient until someone shinier came along? I wanted answers, but part of me already knew the truth. The Clara I remembered, the one who carried dreams as fragile as mine, that Clara was gone. And I was left holding the ghost of a friendship I wasn't sure had ever been real. The office always felt colder after that mixer. Not literally, though the air vents hummed loud enough to freeze, but in the way people looked at me. Or rather, didn't. Clara stopped meeting my eyes. Before, we'd trade quick glances across cubicles, little half-smiles when meetings dragged on too long. Now she acted like I was invisible. She walked past me in the halls with her phone glued to her ear, even when it wasn't ringing. Like acknowledging me might stain her somehow. And Ryan, he was thriving. He strutted into meetings as if he owned the place already, tossing his leather briefcase onto the table like a challenge. His voice carried, slick and confident, the kind of tone that made managers lean in even when he was saying nothing of substance. I sat across from them in the weekly strategy meeting, palms sweating under the table, notes spread out in front of me. I'd been working for weeks on a proposal to streamline client onboarding, nothing flashy. Just a system that would save hours and build real trust. When it was finally my turn, I cleared my throat and said, if we implement a client-first platform, with automated feedback loops, we'll build stronger relationships long-term. It's sustainable. It's. Ryan cut me off with a laugh. That laugh. The same polished chuckle I'd heard at the mixer. Sustainable. Daniel, no offense, but clients don't care about loyalty anymore. They care about flash. About what dazzles them today, not 5 years from now. The room chuckled with him, like he'd cracked some clever joke. My chest tightened, but I forced myself to keep going. Flash fades, I said, echoing my father's words without meaning to. Roots hold. If we invest now. Clara's voice sliced through me sharper than Ryan's smirk. Daniel, maybe we should stick to realistic strategies. You always mean well, but the market isn't built on sentiment. Her tone was smooth, professional, almost gentle. But the sting landed all the same. She wasn't just dismissing my idea. She was dismissing me. The manager nodded slowly, sliding his notepad aside. All right, let's table Daniel's proposal for now. Ryan, why don't you walk us through your pitch? And just like that, my work vanished from the table. My hours, my energy, my voice, drowned out by Ryan's swagger and Clara's silence. As Ryan droned on about marketable buzz and viral reach, I sat back, staring at the glass walls of the conference room. My reflection looked small, swallowed by fluorescent light and suits sharper than mine. I had a choice. Fade into obscurity, play the quiet loyal worker until they buried me in mediocrity. Or stand taller. I didn't know how yet. But I knew one thing for certain. I was done being invisible. The quarterly pitch was the kind of event the firm treated like a gladiator arena. Long glass table. Executives lined up like judges. Coffee cup steaming, pens poised. Careers made or broken in 20-minute slideshows. I'd spent the last month building my presentation. I didn't sleep much. I polished every detail, flowcharts, projections, everything neat and airtight. It was my shot at proving I wasn't just the quiet guy in the corner. But as the meeting started, my stomach dropped. Ryan stood at the head of the room, my spot, with Clara sitting right beside him, flipping through a glossy packet. My packet. Ladies and gentlemen, Ryan began, smooth as silk, we're proposing a new client-first strategy. Streamlined onboarding, automated feedback, long-term retention, the works. My jaw locked. Word for word, he was reciting my plan. My hours. My sweat. My idea. And Clara, she just sat there. No protest. No glance my way. Just a perfectly neutral expression, like she hadn't once leaned over my desk late at night and said, "Daniel, this could change everything." My blood burned. When Ryan clicked to the next slide, I slammed my notebook shut. The sound cut through the room like a gunshot. Heads turned. Ryan paused mid-sentence, blinking. "That's enough," I said. My voice came out sharper than I expected, steady but shaking underneath. "Excuse me?" Ryan raised an eyebrow, smug smile tugging his lips. I stood. "That's my work you're presenting. My system. My projections. You didn't write a single line of it, and Clara knows it." For the first time, Clara looked at me. Just a flicker. And then, silence. She didn't deny it. Didn't defend me. Just sat there, hands folded, as if she'd already picked her side. The executives shifted uncomfortably. Ryan chuckled, trying to spin it. "Daniel, we're all a team here. Ideas belong to the company, not to individuals. Maybe take a breath." "No," I snapped. My heart pounded so hard it hurt, but I didn't back down. "I've taken enough of your breaths, Ryan. Enough of your laughs. Enough of your theft." The room went still. I could feel every pair of eyes on me, but for once, I didn't care. I grabbed my folder, shoved it under my arm, and headed for the door. Behind me, someone muttered my name. Maybe Clara. Maybe not. I didn't turn around. My hand was on the doorknob when I said it. Quiet, almost to myself, but loud enough for them to hear. "This isn't the end." And then I walked out, leaving Ryan mid-sentence, Clara in silence, and my old life crumbling behind me. The phone rang 2 nights after I walked out. I was sitting at my kitchen table, staring at half a takeout box of lo mein, the apartment dark except for the glow of my laptop. I didn't recognize the number, but something in me knew before I answered. "Daniel?" Her voice slid through the line, soft, familiar. "Clara." For a second, I almost hung up. Almost. But the part of me still tethered to all those years of friendship, the river walks, the library tables, kept me frozen. "I just wanted to check in," she said. "The way you left. It was dramatic. People are talking." I let the silence hang. My jaw clenched so tight it hurt. She filled the gap like she always did. "Look, Ryan didn't mean to step on your toes. Sometimes ideas get shared. You know how the industry works." I laughed bitterly. "No, Clara. I know how he works. And now I know how you work too." There was a pause. I imagined her biting her lip the way she did when she got caught lying as a kid. But instead of an apology, her tone shifted, smoother, colder. "Daniel, you're better off keeping it small. You've always had a gentle way of seeing things. But this world isn't built for that. You don't have the ruthlessness it takes." The word slid under my skin like glass. Gentle. Small. Not ruthless. That was her verdict on me. On everything I stood for. I swallowed hard, staring at my cluttered table, at my father's old notebook sitting on the corner. He used to sketch blueprints in it, half-finished dreams that never left the page. He wasn't ruthless either. But he believed in building something with roots. "Maybe you're right," I said finally, my voice flat. "I'm not ruthless. But I'll tell you what I am. I'm done being laughed at. I'm done being stepped on. Daniel, she started, but I cut her off. No. You made your choice. You and Ryan deserve each other. I ended the call before she could reply. For a long time, I sat there in silence, her words echoing, burning hotter than that night in the ballroom. Too small time. Not ruthless. If that's what she believed, then fine. I'd prove her wrong. I didn't need her belief. I'd bet everything on myself. I closed my father's notebook, shoved the lo mein aside, and opened a blank document on my laptop. That was the night Hayes Solutions was born. The first week after quitting felt like falling off a cliff. No safety net, no paycheck, no office chair waiting for me Monday morning. Just silence and the buzzing thought, what now? So I started. I pulled my father's notebook from the shelf, the one with his crooked sketches and half-finished diagrams. He used to tell me, build slow, Daniel. Build right. His handwriting was fading, but the words burned bright enough. I sat at my kitchen table with my laptop and started mapping out Hayes Solutions. At first, it was just lines on a white screen, boxes and arrows showing how businesses could onboard clients without wasting weeks. But as the hours bled into days, it grew teeth, bones, and shape. I worked until sunrise, the glow of the screen burning my eyes, a stack of ramen cups forming towers around me. Sleep was optional. The code kept me awake, humming in my head like static. When exhaustion hit, I'd take a cold shower, grab an energy drink, and dive back in. To keep the lights on, I picked up side gigs. Deliveries. Freelance database fixes. A temp shift at a warehouse on weekends. My body ached, but my mind buzzed. Every dollar I scraped together went back into the project. No fancy dinners, no Friday nights out. Just me, my laptop, and the ghosts of everything Clara had said. You don't have the ruthlessness for this world. Her words played on repeat, fueling me harder than caffeine. Each line of code felt like a retort. Each hour I refused to sleep was a middle finger to the life she thought I was too soft for. The apartment was a mess, empty coffee cans, sticky notes slapped across the walls, wires tangled under the desk. But in that chaos, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Alive. It wasn't glamorous. It wasn't polished. But it was mine. And for the first time, I wasn't chasing someone else's approval. I was building roots of my own. It hit me on a Monday morning. I just pulled an all-nighter debugging the prototype, eyes burning, fingers stiff, when I made the mistake of opening LinkedIn. There it was. Clara's smiling face beside Ryan's, both of them framed in the firm's blue and silver branding. Excited to announce our new roles as senior partners. Proud to lead the firm into its next era of innovation. My chest tightened, but what gutted me wasn't the title. It was the caption beneath Clara's repost. Some people stay simple forever. Growth takes real vision. Simple. Again. Like the word was my brand, stamped across my forehead. I stared at the screen, heart pounding, until I felt the heat crawling up my neck. Was it aimed at me? Of course it was. Nobody else. She wanted me to see it, wanted everyone to see it. Clara Mitchell, rising star. Daniel Hayes, small-time nobody. The comments section swarmed with applause, brilliant duo. Future leaders. Unstoppable. And the local business journal piled on 2 days later, full-page photo of Ryan shaking hands with the CEO, Clara standing beside them like a queen crowned. The headline read, "The new power pair driving growth." I closed the magazine so hard it tore. For a few hours, I sat in the dark, the laptop closed, silence pressing heavy around me. The temptation was there, sharp and sour, quit now, spare yourself the humiliation. But then I thought of my father. Of his rough hands turning notebook pages, the way he'd smile when he said, "Roots hold, Daniel. Remember that." Clara's words cut, but they didn't kill. They lit something. I pushed the magazine aside, opened the laptop and stared at the blank lines of code. My fingers hovered. Anger burned steady in my chest, not wild, not reckless. Controlled. Focused. If Clara thought simplicity meant weakness, she was about to learn the truth. Simplicity could be sharper than she imagined. So I typed. Line after line. Fueled not by hope, but by humiliation. Her status, her smirk, Ryan's smug handshake, every image poured into the work. And I realized, with every keystroke, that their climb wasn't my end. It was my beginning. The email almost looked like spam. Subject line, interested in Hayes Solutions. I hovered over the trash button, half asleep from another marathon coding session, but something made me click. It was from Martin Keller, a small-time angel investor I'd met once at a community startup fair. I barely remembered shaking his hand between handing out flyers nobody wanted. Daniel, I looked at your prototype again. You're onto something. Let's talk. I read it 3 times, just to be sure I wasn't hallucinating. We met at a cramped cafe the next week. I showed him the platform, how it streamlined onboarding, how clients could give feedback instantly instead of drowning in forms. My voice shook as I explained, waiting for the smirk, the dismissal. Instead, Martin leaned back, grinning. You're not chasing flash. You're solving a real problem. I like that. I'll put in seed money. Enough to get you rolling. For the first time since I walked out of that glass conference room, someone believed in me. With his check, I rented a shoebox office, cracked paint, buzzing lights, but it was mine. And I called the only person I knew I could trust, Lucas Grant. Lucas had been my buddy in college. The kind of guy who played guitar at parties but always showed up at finals with 2 extra pencils in case someone forgot theirs. When I told him what I was building, he didn't hesitate. Say no more, he laughed through the phone. When do we start? We started the next morning. Just the 2 of us, crammed into that tiny office with instant coffee and folding chairs. He handled outreach, I handled code. We worked in sync, hours bleeding together. For the first time, it didn't feel like I was dragging myself uphill alone. Piece by piece, the product sharpened. Lucas brought in 2 interns he knew from a networking event. They weren't in it for the money, they believed in the vision. In me. Word spread faster than I expected. A local chamber of commerce tested the platform. A regional supplier signed a trial deal. Small wins, but they added up. Articles started popping up in niche blogs, Hayes Solutions, the quiet startup making client retention simple. Simple. The word that once cut me now fueled me. At night, sitting in that office surrounded by whiteboards full of arrows and deadlines, I felt the exhaustion, sure. My body begged for rest. But my chest burned with something stronger. I was building. Brick by brick. Root by root. And for the first time, it wasn't just me against Clara and Ryan. It was me for myself. The news came in the form of an email. No warning, no build-up, just a clean subject line that made me sit up straighter in my chair. Congratulations, Hayes Solutions has been awarded the Carter Tech contract. For a long moment, I just stared at the words, blinking. Carter Tech was a whale. The kind of client firms fought over for months. The kind of client Ryan and Clara's company had courted aggressively, with ads, flashy demos, dinners in overpriced steakhouses. And they'd chosen me. I called Lucas immediately. He screamed into the phone so loud I had to pull it away from my ear. You did it, man. You beat them. Not us. Me. The quiet, too simple, Daniel Hayes. The industry event announcing the new partnership was packed, polished suits, banners, reporters with cameras flashing. I stood near the back with Lucas, still not used to these rooms. My tie felt too tight. My hands wanted to fidget. Then I saw her. Clara, standing near the stage, Ryan at her side. They were in their element, perfect smiles, champagne glasses raised, shaking hands like they'd already won. Until the announcement dropped. And we're thrilled to welcome Hayes Solutions as our official partner for Carter Tech. It was like watching glass shatter in slow motion. Ryan's smile faltered just a fraction, but Clara, her eyes widened, then sharpened. For the first time in years, she looked at me. Directly. The crowd applauded, the CEO of Carter Tech gesturing toward me, but I barely heard it. My entire world narrowed to that single look. Clara Mitchell, the girl who once told me I was different. The woman who laughed at my simplicity. Her lips parted, like she wanted to say something, but I didn't give her the chance. I held her gaze, steady. Calm. And then I smiled. Not wide, not triumphant. Just a quiet smile, enough to say, "You were wrong." I didn't need words. My success spoke louder than anything I could have said. And for the first time since walking out of that glass conference room, I didn't feel small. I felt unshakable. The applause had barely faded when I felt it, the tap on my arm. Light, deliberate. I turned, and there she was. Clara. Her perfume hit me first, the same floral sharpness I remembered from late nights in the library. For a second it was like time folded, pulling me back to whispered study sessions and paper cups of bad coffee. But then she spoke. "Daniel," she said, smiling like nothing had ever happened. "Wow. It's been, forever." Her voice was warm, practiced. I knew that tone. She used it in meetings when she wanted someone to feel small but welcome, useful but not essential. I nodded. "Clara." She laughed softly, tilting her head like we were still friends. "You really surprised me today. Hayes Solutions, huh? Who would have thought?" There it was. Who would have thought? The same undertone as that night at the mixer. Simple Daniel. Small-time Daniel. Only now, she tried to mask it with sweetness. "Life takes strange turns," I said, keeping my voice even. Her smile wavered just a fraction, but she recovered quickly. "We should catch up sometime. You know, talk about the old days. I miss those walks we used to take. Don't you?" I looked at her. Really looked. The flawless dress, the confident stance, the way her eyes kept flicking past me, scanning who was watching, calculating optics. She wasn't here for nostalgia. She was here because, for the first time, I wasn't beneath her. I let the silence stretch, watching her shift slightly on her heels. Then I smiled, polite but cool. "The past is the past, Clara. I'm focused on what's ahead." Her face flickered, just for a second, before she put the mask back on. "Of course. Well, congratulations again, Daniel." "Really?" She slipped away, her perfume fading into the crowd, leaving me standing with a strange lightness in my chest. Because for the first time, I realized something simple. I didn't need her validation anymore. And God, it felt freeing. It started as whispers, casual lines in industry forums, a half-heard conversation at a cafe, murmurs from suppliers who had once bragged about being on Ryan's speed dial. Too aggressive. Overpromised again. Clients are walking. At first, I thought it was just noise. Competitors always gossiped, and envy ran thick in this business. But then I noticed the patterns. Projects delayed. Contracts scaled back. One major client quietly announced they were reconsidering their strategic partnerships. And every time Ryan's name came up, the tone wasn't respectful anymore, it was irritating. Amusement. Disdain. Arrogance doesn't scale well. I sat in my office one evening, the city lights washing across my desk, scrolling through the news feed when I saw the article, "Layoffs expected at Cole and Mitchell's firm amid contract losses." My chest tightened at the headline. Layoffs meant families scrambling, people blindsided. I knew what it felt like to be dismissed, and I wouldn't wish it on anyone. But then my eyes landed on the quote. Ryan, smug as ever, saying, "This is just a routine adjustment. We're still the strongest players in the game." I could almost hear his voice in that boardroom years ago, brushing me aside. I wondered how Clara was handling it. She'd tied herself so tightly to him, shadowing his decisions, echoing his bravado. I pictured her scrolling through the same articles, her jaw tightening, her nails digging into her palm as the image she'd built started to crumble. Part of me wanted to call her, to ask if she was okay. But another part, the larger part, remembered her words. "You don't have the ruthlessness for this world." No. I wasn't going to rush in and play savior. Not anymore. She chose her side. And now she was watching it splinter. The irony was bitter. Years ago, her laughter had made me feel small, like simplicity was weakness. But standing here now, in my modest but growing office, surrounded by a team who believed in me, I realized something else. It wasn't simplicity that broke empires. It was arrogance. The email came late at night. An acquisition offer. I sat staring at the screen, the city humming outside my window, a cup of cold coffee at my elbow. Investors wanted to buy me out, to fold Hayes Solutions into their sprawling portfolios. The kind of deal that would set me for life. But I didn't build this to cash out. I built it to last. And somewhere in the back of my mind, I heard my father's voice, "Don't just work for someone else's dream, Daniel. Build your own. Make it count." So I turned the deal on its head. Not a sale. A buy. The irony wasn't lost on me. Hayes Solutions, the scrappy startup they all dismissed, now had the leverage to acquire the very firm that once laughed me out of its glass conference rooms. The paperwork took weeks. Negotiations were tense. Ryan blustered, fought, tried to spin it beneath him. But numbers don't bend to arrogance, and there's painted a picture of decline. One by one, their shareholders caved. By the time the ink dried, it was over. The morning of the announcement, I walked back into that office, the same cold marble lobby where I once felt invisible. Everything looked smaller now. The walls, the people rushing past, even the silence in the air. I rode the elevator to the top floor, the doors opening onto the boardroom where it had all begun. And there she was. Clara. She froze mid-step, files in her hands. For a second, she didn't breathe. Her eyes darted from my face to the stack of documents in front of the executives, to the logo stamped at the top, Hayes Solutions. Her lips parted. "Daniel?" I nodded once, calm. "Morning, Clara." Her gaze flicked between me and the others, disbelief painted across her face. You're. The new CEO, one of the board members finished for her, almost smug in their relief to have someone else steering the ship. Clara's jaw tightened. She swallowed, but the shock in her eyes lingered, raw and unguarded. For the first time, she had no script, no polished remarks. I stepped past her, setting my briefcase on the polished table where Ryan once leaned back and dismissed me. My voice was steady. "Let's get to work." But inside, I felt something deeper. Not triumph. Not revenge. Just a quiet sense of arrival. I wasn't here to gloat. I was here to lead. The first staff meeting under my leadership was thick with silence. People weren't sure how to look at me, some curious, some skeptical, some relieved. I could feel it all pressing in, but I kept my focus on the agenda, on the work that mattered. Afterward, as people filed out, Clara lingered. She stood near the door, arms crossed like she was holding herself together. When the last chair scraped back, she finally walked over. "Daniel," she said softly, almost tender. I just want you to know. I always believed in you. The words floated in the air, fragile, desperate. I studied her face, searching for sincerity. Maybe part of her meant it now. Maybe she wanted to rewrite history, sand down the sharp edges of everything she'd once thrown at me. But my memory was too sharp. I heard it all again, the laughter over champagne, the smirk in the conference room, her voice saying I didn't have what it took. Words that used to echo in my chest at night. I met her gaze, steady. No, Clara. You didn't. Her eyes flickered, widening, like she hadn't expected me to say it out loud. I leaned back in my chair, my voice calm, even. And that's fine. Because I don't need your belief anymore. For a long second, she said nothing. Her lips parted, but no words came. The silence stretched between us, heavy, until it was broken by a sharp crack, Ryan slamming his hand against the table. This is a joke, he snapped, his face red, eyes darting between us. You think you can waltz in here and run this place? You're nothing without us. Without me. I didn't rise to meet his fury. I didn't have to. I just watched as he stormed out, his footsteps echoing down the hallway. Clara stayed, though. She looked smaller than I remembered, her confidence stripped raw. For once, there was no laughter, no mocking tone. Just silence. And in that silence, I realized something, this was never about revenge. It wasn't about proving Clara wrong or putting Ryan in his place. It was about finally proving myself right. The office was quiet when everyone finally left. Papers stacked neatly on the conference table, the hum of the city drifting in through the glass walls. My glass walls now. I stood at the window, hands in my pockets, looking out over the skyline. Years ago, I'd walked these halls feeling invisible, my ideas dismissed before they ever left my mouth. Now the weight of the keycard on my belt reminded me of everything that had changed. But as I stood there, I realized, this wasn't about Ryan. Or Clara. Or even the people who once mocked me. It wasn't about proving them wrong. It was about proving myself right. My father used to tell me, sitting at our kitchen table with bills spread out between us, Daniel, you don't have to be flashy. Just steady. Just honest. That's what lasts. I didn't understand it back then. I thought success had to come with noise and attention. But now, in this office, I finally did. Simplicity wasn't a weakness. It was the foundation. Persistence. Loyalty. The things that don't break when pressure comes. I thought of Clara, a shadow fading at the edges of memory. There was no bitterness anymore, no fire left in that wound. Just distance. She was part of my story, yes, but not the ending. The ending was here, with Lucas sending me late-night texts about new ideas, with a team who believed in me enough to grind through ramen nights and sleepless deadlines. With a company built not on arrogance, but on trust. I sat at my new desk, running a hand across the polished surface, and let out a slow breath. For the first time, I felt complete. They laughed at my simplicity, I whispered into the quiet. But it built everything I have now. And with that, I turned back to my laptop. Not to dwell on the past, but to shape the future.